Our journey begins right here on the outskirts of Prescott Valley in Arizona, and here's a map of the route that we'll be taking today. We'll kick off our drive right here at the base of the mountains, and then we'll be slithering our way through the snaky Highway 89A through the Mingus Mountains, all the way to the little hillside town of Jerome, Arizona. If there is one thing I absolutely love, it's a scenic drive through the mountains. To me, nothing is more satisfying than seeing the change in landscapes as we make our ascend. From the outskirts of Prescott Valley to the very top of Mingus Mountain, it's a 2,500-foot gain in elevation. And at its highest point, Mingus Mountain has an elevation of 7,726 feet. Now, Highway 89A doesn't necessarily go all the way to the top, but there are forest roads that take you further up the mountain, where you'll find multiple campgrounds and even a small lake. Nothing but the great outdoors. However, you won't find Dan Aykroyd and John Candy in these parts. The highway itself is in great shape, and besides a few bumpy parts around the sharp turns, it's a pretty smooth ride, except for when you have a couple of Kyles and big ass trucks riding your ass. Heck, I was even driving a little bit above the speed limit, and they were not letting up. Unfortunately, some people see the speed limit signs as a challenge. But whatever, I'm not your dad. They were probably late for a Monster Energy convention or a drywall punching contest. According to PrescottImportCar.com, Highway 89A, which was originally State Route 79, was built in the early 1900s and started off as a single lane dirt road used to transport mining supplies and equipment up and down the mountain. By 1926, it was paved and had been extended to 2 lanes. Now, at this point in time, the highway ran from Prescott all the way to Clarkdale. Clarkdale is just another 10-minute drive northeast of Jerome. When I started putting this video together, I did find an old photo of the highway before it was paved. Even though I didn't get any exact side by side shots, you can still make out the similarities in the curvature of the highway. Perhaps one of the best parts of doing these mountain drives is seeing the transition from desert to forest. I live on the outskirts of Phoenix, which is basically rocks, cactus, sand, and desert, but knowing that within a 2 hour drive north, you can be completely surrounded by lush green forest, it's one of the joys of living in Arizona. In fact, according to dffm.az.gov, forests cover roughly 27% of the state and occupy 19.4 million acres. The majority of this forest land is located above the Mogollon Rim, which is this area that you see right here. Now, before we start making our way down the mountain, I decided to stop in at Mingus Mountain Camp, which is a little rest area where you can get out, stretch your legs, have a cigarette, yell at your kids for spilling ice cream on the seats, or relieve yourself at these luxurious restroom facilities. Figured we'd pull over and get out for a little bit and kind of take this all in. I don't want to just drive and fly the entire way, but it is absolutely gorgeous out here. Definitely reminds me of Colorado, like the drive from Telluride to Ouray, at least as you're coming out of Telluride and making the ascend. And it's only 88 degrees up here too. Gorgeous drive. Immediately after shooting this clip, I received an overheating prompt on my drone remote, and the battery percentage kept rapidly changing back and forth from 67% to 0%, causing it to automatically initiate the return to home sequence. Now, I had plenty of battery life left, but I did not like what I was seeing, so I decided to land my drone, let it cool off in the car, and drive down to our next stop. We are so incredibly close to Jerome right now. I think we only got about another mile and a half. I saw another pullout area, so I decided to check it out because I've never been down this highway before. And across the canyon here, looks like we have some remnants from the old mining days. In just a second here, I'll get my drone out and go in for a closer look. Hopefully the wind isn't too big of a bother because it's kind of coming and going. It's picking up, but it's dying down really quick. Check out that amazing view. Gonna have to snap a photo of this one on my drone and put this one up in the studio. I did my best on Google to try to find the backstory on these structures, but every time I searched for abandoned mines or buildings in Jerome, I just got flooded with other mines in the area and buildings located downtown. However, I think it's safe to say that this was probably one of several copper mining operations in the area, but if anyone can share more details, I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally approaching the last mile of the drive into Jerome, and I gotta say, this was by far the most exhilarating part of the entire drive. However, if you're driving down here in an RV like this guy, you may have difference of opinion, and you may need to change your shorts. Now, there is guardrails in place, but I always refer to them as guide rails, because if you're dumb enough and going fast enough, they're not gonna stop you from going over the edge and meeting Jesus. And if anybody watching today's video has ever traveled this highway to Jerome, feel free to share your memories and how your drive was in the comments down below. I would love to read them, and I'm really interested in hearing those RV stories as well. The first thing you'll notice when entering the town of Jerome is how close to the street everything is, such as these garages that lead directly into the street. And once we get further into town, you'll see how very little room there is between the road and people's front doors. The town of Jerome sits on the Cleopatra hillside and has often been referred to as America's largest ghost town. But, as made evident by the video that you're seeing, it's clearly not a ghost town and is flourishing with tourism. So, why the name? Well, let's take a step back in time, or walk through downtown, and learn a little bit about this historic ghost town. This building is called the Flatiron Cafe, and it first opened in 1913. It's one of the most recognizable buildings in Jerome. And here's an old photo I found of it on the internet. And of course, here's a side-by-side look. According to GhostTownTours.org, Jerome, Arizona was founded in 1876 by early prospectors who filed the first mining claims on Cleopatra Hill. It was a small community known for its copper mining. Now, things may have started off small, but as mining operations grew, so did the town. Over time, railroads, telegraph lines, smelters, roads, hospitals, and schools were built. According to azjerome.com, at one time it was the fourth largest city in Arizona, with the population peaking at 15,000 in the 1920s. Another fun fact about Jerome is that it earned the nickname as the wickedest town in the West. According to Roadrunner.travel, nearly 80% of Jerome's residents at the time were men working in the mines, and they got bored during their free time. Various saloons, gambling houses, and brothels popped up to entertain the miners and relieve them of their salaries, prompting the Sun newspaper to give Jerome its wicked title in 1903. Saloons, gambling, and brothels. Not gonna lie, sounds like a pretty good time. But by 1914, World War I led to a huge demand for copper. Employment was growing, and the number of companies involved in mining throughout the area was rapidly increasing. Mining operations over the years did have their ups and downs, but for the most part, things for the community of Jerome seemed to be doing well. Then came along the Great Depression, and the price of copper started to fall, leading to layoffs, shutdowns, and wage reductions. The residents of Jerome, though, proved to be an extremely resilient community. Between the years of 1894 and 1898, there were 4 major fires that destroyed most of the business district and half of the community homes. But they continued on. After the Great Depression, the population started to dwindle, and by 1953, mining activities had ceased. By the end of the 1950s, the population was less than 100, and the remaining residents decided to promote it as a historic ghost town. Nowadays, the town has a population of around 460 people and is a huge tourist attraction with many restaurants, bars, gift shops, art galleries, and some pretty fascinating hotels. Some of them are even rumored to be haunted, especially the Jerome Grand Hotel. It's earned the title as one of the most haunted places in Arizona, with reports of ghostly figures, sound, unexplained orbs of light, and other paranormal activity. It was built in 1926 as a hospital, and it's estimated that 9,000 people died on the premises, mostly from mining accidents. We may just have to film a video here in the future, but let me know if that would be a video you guys would like to see. And if you do want to see another fun Arizona drive, just click the video in the upper left-hand corner and continue the fun.